Okay, and we're live on Facebook for our DannLaw VS Fraud podcast.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of DannLaw VS Fraud. I am Brian Flick, one of the partners here at DannLaw. And today our motley crew is only down to 2, our great producer extraordinaire, Ava, and one of the other attorneys in our office and frequent co-host, Brent Snyder. Unfortunately for everyone who's watching at home, and we do want to thank you, for joining us for these podcasts. I hear our numbers were up last podcast. Unfortunately, the brains of the outfit, Marita Ramirez, could not be here today. She is on taking a much needed vacation from dealing with all of these frauds. So with that said, I mean,
Ian, can you respond to Mark? Okay. Oh, hello. So today we're going to be talking about AI scams in shopping because a lot of wonderful things have been popping up that even I've seen on my feeds. I'm going to display some images for you guys here. We've got this beautiful AI gorilla chair. This is something that's actually being sold, and it's all fake. We have these cat chairs as well that you can see on the screen, and we have like this crocheted-looking yak. And as you can see, they're all fake AI slop, but they're all being sold as real things. So I figure our attorneys here might have some opinions on that and maybe how you can avoid purchasing garbage like this.
Well, I'm not here as someone myself personally who does buy things on Amazon and has been known to randomly buy something off a Facebook ad. I understand there's a need for this. There's a way where, there is a want for this, but, much like anything else we've talked about, trust but verify. It's too good to be true, especially with respect to the cat chairs, which I actually looked at when I got that ad, looked into, trust but verify. Look at not only the ad, but Google it. Again, we're not sponsored by anyone. We're not, use your favorite search engine. Find out, is this real? Who is the manufacturer of this item? And if you can't, or it's taken more than 5 minutes, your spidey sense should kick in and say it probably is a scam. One thing I would say to a caveat of this, the kind of transition to, if you feel like you're being defrauded, I know that many of us now, are hooked on Amazon, hooked on third-party websites such as Temu. I personally never used Temu, but I've read the horror stories. But, a lot of the items that we are importing into this country, specifically from Asia, due to the tariff issues that are going on and manufacturing issues and shortages, there is a significant delay in a lot of things, that you've ordered, even if you opt for expedited shipping. So you may feel like you're being defrauded, but certainly check with the source. Is there shipping information? Is there information about even a tracking number? I'll give you a good example. I don't have it on my desk to hold up, but about 4 months ago, I ordered the world's smallest violin from Facebook, and it was $20. It is about yay big, and it plays a little song. It has a little bar to put on there, but it's just there. It's a joke. But it was coming from South Korea. It took literally 2.5 months to get there. I legitimately bought on a actual third-party website a Millennium Falcon mouse. It has been stuck. I bought it before Christmas. It is from a legitimate company. It has been stuck in customs in China to get out and get over the ocean now for going on 6 months. Now, I'm not upset. I'm annoyed that I don't have it, but It's $50 it would cost me if I wanted to litigate it myself. They do have an arbitration clause, which will be the subject of many other things down the line. Potentially, we may do some sessions about off DannLaw VS Fraud about that, but it's going to cost me more than it's worth to even arbitrate the matter, even if I'm entitled to damages. If the mouse comes, I'll be happy and I'll play with it. I'll just have a Millennium Falcon mouse. But if I don't get it, I don't get it. But bottom line is, again, if it's too good to be true, you know, be on the lookout. And, you know, things like the Gorilla Chair, I mean, you know, I think that one, when I saw it, I knew it was AI myself, because I'm like, who in their right mind would design this and not be putting it in some sort of boutique for a brick and mortar? I mean, that's the kind of thing you see in a large city, you know, at a vintage shop or a retro shop or something like that. It's not necessarily something you're going to randomly see on a website. Because also, for those of you who bought furniture online, like me, how the heck are you going to get that thing home? How's that coming to you? That's not coming in one piece. So, you know, just some things to think about. And look, if you have, you know, we talked about this with our last podcast. If you feel like and know you have been the victim of the scam and its spidey senses going off, and you actually paid money, you know, consulting with a firm like ours or many other great consumer protection firms who are members of organizations like the National Association of Consumer Advocates. Again, we're not sponsored, just giving you a place to go if it's not our firm. Consulting with a lawyer, but also potentially contacting the financial institution that you made a charge from to let them know that you may have a fraudulent transaction going on, and they initiate rightfully. Maybe they've got complaints from this vendor before. What's known as a chargeback with credit cards, especially. And what's really important, just in general, with chargebacks, and Brent and I do a lot of this litigation, not as much as we used to, but we still do it with chargebacks. What's very important with a successful chargeback, I have found based on evidence and experience, is having information about what the fraud is. It's not simply, I'm disputing it because I never got the item, for example, which is the very common one. It's, I'm disputing this with my credit card company, for example, Capital One. We're not sponsored by Capital One. I'm just using them, or not even paying on them. I made a charge on Amazon with Capital One. I never got the item. I wish to initiate the chargeback. Give Capital One more information than that. When did I purchase it? Why do I believe I was defrauded? And also, if I did have to file a police report or anything like that, FTC report, you know, Brent talked about the other reports that may need to be filed, providing that as well to give them all the tools.
Yeah, I think Brian, I think you make some really good points. I mean, you know, AI has been, you know, both a sword and a shield as far as some of this stuff goes. I mean, I've been an online shopper for a long time. I think all of us have some kind of, you know, odd hobbies or things that we collect and whatnot. And you know, there used to not be a lot of recourse for when you were ordering something out of a magazine and, you know, and things like that. But with, I'm not entirely making ourselves feel much older than we even really are, but you know, with online, I think it's important, you know, always buyer beware. I remember some of the early eBay scams where people were selling, you know, PlayStations or Xboxes, and what you would actually get was a picture of a PlayStation or Xbox, or get an empty box. They're just selling the box, you know, and you had to read through the fine print to see that that's really what they were selling. I mean, it was right there on the website, but nobody is really gonna spend the, you know, really gonna look it up, especially early on, you know, when these things started. Now with AI, you do have the ability to do much faster research into sellers, into organizations, you know, and whatnot. In addition, a couple things that I know, just because I'm in some like watch collector type groups and things like that. And there's frauds, there's counterfeit goods out there left and right. And knowing, you know, where those products come from, being able to have a quick way to identify whether something is real or not, you know, And importantly, like Brian was talking about with the chargebacks, is many of the credit card companies do have really good, not that we're endorsing people using credit necessarily, or especially incurring debt, but they do offer some protections out there. You just have to make sure that you're jumping through the proper hoops and doing it a certain way. That's something that Brian and I think over the years have really, really learned, especially through our arbitration practice, is the various steps that have to be taken before you can even get somebody to adjudicate your dispute, whether that's in a court or whether that's in a, in many of these cases, you've got to send a letter that details, and you got to make sure you use the right language and have the right, account number and the right description of what happened. Importantly, I think some things online to look for when buying off of, say, something like eBay or Temu or any of those type things, especially if you're dealing with individuals or small businesses. A lot of these folks will want you to use, I'm trying to think, I want to make sure I say it correctly, but it's basically like through PayPal and whatnot, you can basically send money or whatnot as friends and family, and you don't incur, or the seller doesn't incur the fees for the credit cards, versus doing it as a purchase of goods, which gives you additional protections through the website that you're using to transmit the funds. And of course, as we were talking last week, anything that's wanting crypto, funds in crypto or in gift cards, is an immediate red flag. But I think that's the thing is, do your research. I know we all have had late night, Amazon binge shopping maybe or something like that. But make sure what you're buying does have good refund policies and things like that. And to Brian's point, I know my wife had ordered some clothing and whatnot from Australia and from England. And there wasn't a scam or anything wrong with it necessarily, other than it didn't fit her, or sizing wasn't correct or something like that. But there was no free returns, and the cost to return something overseas was 2/3, if not more than what the item would cost to get refunded. So just spend the extra couple minutes reviewing the terms and conditions of what you're buying, what you're entering into, what the return policy is. They don't always make it easy to find that. Sometimes they try and bury it in the fine print. But basically just do your due diligence. And if it's something, in my opinion, if it's something really really expensive and whatnot, brick and mortar stores are always nice. It's always nice to be able to put your hands and eyes on something before purchasing it. Even if you then have to get online and have it ordered and sent or whatever, something like that. But I think, a lot of those people play on, play on your emotions and your desire to have the next new big thing. And that's how people get taken frequently. I know there was I just know this from watching the news. My wife actually showed it to me, but there was a collaboration between Swatch, which is a watchmaker, and some very, very high-end watchmaker, and people were lined up like a mile down the road in New York, and within hours there was counterfeits on the street and whatnot. So you got just spend the extra 5 minutes that it takes, instead of being all excited that you're going to snag something at a hell of a deal. So
well, and to that, I'll introduce our special, finally, the myth, the man, the legend, our fourth host in a minute. But to piggyback off something Brent said about trust but verify shopping online, our firm, had a case where a client was buying high-end jewelry, very high-end jewelry, from a secondhand retailer in California. And the person, our client, lived in Ohio. The jeweler was in the Los Angeles area, and it was a Cartier necklace. As part of the diligence, our client asked for the certificate of authenticity for the Cartier necklace, which is required, and one was produced. Our client did her diligence and discovered from Cartier that certificate of authentication was fraudulent. It was created by the jeweler, not basically rebranding, saying this came from Cartier, and Cartier said, absolutely not. Here is why. Here is our process to certify. And this may be our necklace. This might be one of our products, but we can't tell you for sure. And bottom line is, our client, paid a lot of money for something and got a significant amount of money in return for buying a good that was represented to her as being something authentic as a Cartier and really wasn't. But in that case, she really did some diligence going directly to Cartier and saying, is this accurate? And I'm not suggesting to everybody that you go straight to the horse's mouth with a manufacturer to say, is this yours? But in cases where you are buying high-end jewelry or high-end watch, Brent, you said Swatch, I'm thinking of the old slap watches, from when we were kids. I know I'm dating me, but, and that was probably, you were wearing those in high school, but same concept. Trust but verify, make sure that, what you're buying, is what it says it is, basically. And with that said, as we said in episodes 1 and 2, there are 4 hosts for this DannLaw VS Fraud podcast. We're rotating cast of misfits and our founding partner extraordinaire and fourth member of the podcast, Mark Dan, is here. So, Mark, we've been talking a little bit about online scams. Kind of high level, we've been talking about, things to be on the watch out, what look out for, and trusting and verifying what you do if you think you've been a victim. Do you have anything you want to?
Yeah, so I've been focusing on a couple of things lately that I think are interesting in things you don't expect, and those are in the business context. There are a couple of different business situations I've seen, and I was just dealing with one which made me late for the podcast, and I apologize to all of you for being a little bit late. The one I was just dealing with had to do with this. Our client owns a bar. They bought an awning so that they could serve their customers on the sidewalk outside. And the awning was financed by a company that called itself a rental company. So he signed a contract that said it was a rental of the awning. Well, what he was really doing was financing the purchase and installation of this awning. That's what he intended to do. But this company created this fiction that he was renting it from them. Well, and then they started charging him, and when he stopped paying them, they started reporting him negatively to credit reporting agencies. So we sued him. We sued everybody. As we like to say around here, let's sue everybody and let God sort it out. And we sued the company, the rental company called Time Payments, by the way, to look out for them. We sued the contractor that was involved in the purchase and the installation of the awning, and it turns out that that Time Payments never paid the contractor for the awning, and which is why the contractor never installed it. But they continued to try to collect, and then when they failed to collect, to report our client negatively to credit reporting agencies, which is making it really difficult for him to do business. All because, instead of a contractor saying, okay, I'll finance this transaction, or our client going to a bank and borrowing money to get the awning installed, entered into this fakakta contract with these scammers. And I don't know who the scammer and the scammy is yet, whether it's the contractor or Time Payments. We're going to find out, and we're going to get to the bottom. And that's what we do here, by the way. So we're going to find out. I don't know if anybody's ever seen the movie Absence of Malice with Paul Newman. It's an oldie. Now I'm dating myself. But remember the guy that did the Quaker Oats commercial, Wilford Brimley?
Yep.
Yeah, with the mustache, the kind of heavy guy, always wore suspenders. Well, Wilford Brimley is the U.S. attorney in the case, and it's all about a fraud on the government that's going on. And Wilford comes into a room, and they have everybody important there, and he throws down a piece of paper. He goes, "This is a subpoena. A wonderful thing, a subpoena. I can find out anything about anybody with one of these. And I'm going to find out everything I'm going to ask you right now. So I suggest you all tell me the truth." Well, a subpoena is a wonderful thing. Being able to put people under oath and force them to tell the truth. Hell, that's why we all went to law school, so that we could hold people accountable. And we are in the very first thing they tell you is that you are in a search for the truth. And that's what we are here. So this fraud stuff doesn't hold up very well to honesty and to accountability. And that's what we're going to bring to the situation. The other situation, and this is multiple clients that we're dealing with right now, are these companies that come in and they basically give a payday loan to a small business and say that they're buying their receivables. They're called merchant cash advance companies. And look, here's the problem. There are wonderful, and we'll talk about these as this podcast gets underway, or the podcast, not the podcast. In Boston, probably they probably call it a podcast, Brian, or a car. But as this podcast gets further down the road, there are great federal and state consumer protection laws. Unfair and deceptive practices are prohibited in almost every state in the country. The Fair Debt Collection Practices Act protects you against debt collectors. The Telephone Consumer Protection Act protects you against people calling you without your permission on your cell phone. And there's a myriad, an alphabet soup of great laws around the country that we access to help our clients on these cases. But in a business-to-business transaction, not so much. In fact, one of the things that I'm going to be talking to, I used to be a member of the Ohio General Assembly. I was a member of the state Senate for a while. And we are down there often. They often call on us for our expertise on consumer protection law when they're looking at bills related to consumer protection. But what I've been talking to legislators about is looking at whether there should be some statutory protections for small businesses from this type of fraud going forward as well. So these merchant cash advance companies, they come in, they loan you all kinds of money. And what they say is, we're not loaning you money, so we're not subject to limits on usury and other protections that borrowers have. We're buying your receivables. So we're going to buy, and you just send us what you get. When you get paid, you send us those receivables, and we're going to pay you now. This is really going to date me. If anybody watched Popeye cartoons, we'll pay you. We'll pay you today. I'll pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. Well, they're going to pay you today much less than the hamburger's worth for a hamburger tomorrow. But they're really not after the hamburger, because in addition to buying the receivables, they're also soliciting and getting, in most cases, a personal guarantee of the owner of that business. And so what it's going to do is drive those business owners into bankruptcy ultimately, and we try to keep them out of it, and we try to fight that fraud and the misrepresentations that got us there. And because what you can do in business is traditional contract analysis applies, and it is unconscionable to premise a contract on a fraud, and therefore that contract may not be enforceable. And damn it, we're going to make those arguments to protect these people, and we're doing it in all across the country. It's ironic. A lot of these merchant cash advance companies are headquartered in Buffalo, New York. And I don't know what it is about Buffalo, but actually there's also a great documentary about the fact that all of the really slimy debt collectors in the country are also primarily headquartered in Buffalo, New York as well. So there may be better football in Buffalo than in Cleveland, but there are certainly less scrupulous business people in Buffalo than Cleveland. So in any event, I'm seeing this over and over again. This is something that we want to talk about, make people aware of. Hopefully, we can keep some people from getting into these kinds of situations.
Yeah.
But also, we're here to help you unfuck it if something goes wrong in a situation like that, and that's what we do. And real simply. So, and nobody's better at it than the people on this podcast. Marita and Andy, who aren't here today, Brent and Brian, are terrific lawyers. And they'll, and look, we're going to outwork them. We're going to outthink them. We're going to put that, and we're going to expose these fraudsters for who they are. So sorry, that's more than you wanted from me, but that's what you get.
It was a good first rant, Mark. It really was.
Thanks.
And, for those of you who are watching again, this is not intended to be legal advice, but especially what Mark was saying about the merchant cash advances, or you may, if you are a small business owner or a business owner, you may approve them as an MCA. If you're involved with one right now and have some questions, please don't hesitate to schedule a free consultation with us, and we can walk through where you're at. One of the things that our firm also does, we have filed bankruptcy very recently for several small business owners that were cycled with these MCAs that unfortunately we did not find each other in time. And I am the one personally handling the bulk of those cases. And I can tell you it is a nightmare, because even if we can protect you personally, these businesses will not stop to try to collect and get something out of you. And, we're here to expose the fraud, but we're also, very importantly, we want to protect you from the fraud. It's one of the purposes of this podcast. And we can do a whole one on MCAs down the line. We'll show you the good, the bad, the ugly on that agreement.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember, as we talked about in our first episode, that there's kind of a fine line between what's a scam, what's a fraud, and what's just being taken advantage of. None of which are okay, by the way. But very, very quickly does it intersect. I mean, there may be nothing per se illegal about some of the business cash advance type things, especially in the states that they're coming from. They may not be illegal, but that doesn't mean that they're kosher. Or that they're helping anybody other than the people making those loans. So I think that's important to remember.
And I hate to interject. This is a really good conversation. And I think, at least from this one alone, I know now, just buy an umbrella. Go to Target and buy an umbrella if I have an outside business. But we do have to call it quits for today. But we'll be back next week on Thursday at about 5 o'clock. Eastern time, and we'll talk more about fraud. So and you can always leave comments and questions too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Yay.